In his apology or defense of Socrates, Plato tells us that in 399 BC, Socrates was finally arrested and put on trial for corrupting the youth and refusing to acknowledge the gods recognized by the state. In actual fact, he was arrested for challenging the status quo and the authority of Athens' leaders. At the conclusion of the 6-hour trial, the jury found Socrates guilty and sentenced him either to exile or death. He chose death. The details of the execution are provided in the Phaedo. Given the two options, Socrates deemed that death was the more honorable and the more instrumental in the cause of discovering truth and the right to pursue and promote it, no matter the cost. Today in the Western world, we extol and celebrate Socrates for his firm stand for truth, including me. We give much attention to his thinking, but equally much to his action, that of self-sacrifice. Yes, Socrates sacrificed his life for a principle, the love of truth. He paid the ultimate price for the greater good of humanity, while others before and since then would not. 2,400 years later, Socrates is still a hero and exemplar to us, and his legacy lives on. That's partly why self-sacrifice is esteemed so highly, and why it should be. But with as much as the sources tell us about Socrates' death, none claim that he rose from the dead. And if he didn't, why would they? In fact, no historical figure has ever made this claim for himself, nor has it been made for them by their adherents. Well, except for one. What should we make of that one? After all, such a thing would be hard to maintain and easy to dismiss without the necessary historical evidence. Still, Socrates' death alone was enough to enshrine him in our collective consciousness. But Socrates' legacy would not be possible without a view of reality that says history is real and the historical sources that capture it for us. Indeed, most of the philosophers that inform our theories of reality seem to have acknowledged this, that there has been a stream of real events in the past and real great thinkers that have gone before them. They have each contributed to the current body of knowledge that we call reality. Assuming the principle of historical credibility, they could believe this because of their writings and those of others that have been written about them. And we can also. It's interesting to note that despite the fact that all our knowledge of Socrates comes primarily from one main source, Plato, few scholars of everyday students seem to doubt his selfless act of heroism or call it into question. 430 years later, another man of history paid the ultimate price for similar reasons and in similar circumstances, Jesus of Nazareth. This principle is one reason why Jesus' execution was so noteworthy and memorable, and why Good Friday is still so embedded in Christian observance today. I suspect that many of the philosophers we have discussed believed in the historicity of Jesus' life and execution, even the skeptic David Hume. Today, the vast majority of historians do too. It's a wonder then that generally only Muslims do not. They do not reject the death of Christ for historical reasons. They reject it despite the historical evidence. Why? Because their most revered source of knowledge from 600 or more years later, one that does not boast of historical accuracy, says that Jesus was not crucified, neither did he die, but was only made to appear so. That's found in Quran, Surah 4, verses 157 and 158. Theirs is a different view of reality with respect to history. Further, in the case of Jesus, Muslims do not esteem the self-sacrifice that can be attributed to him by historical sources, including the Bible's New Testament. From the former sources, many would ascribe the same virtue of selflessness and other virtues to Jesus as are ascribed to Socrates, and from the latter, no less than the virtue of supreme love. I ask then, in the same sense in which people like Socrates', including Imam Ali's, refusal to avoid death for a higher principle is viewed as laudable and imitable by all the world, should not Muslims view the voluntary death of Jesus the same way?